Okay, another story I want to mention briefly. Daily Wire reports average math and reading test scores for 13-year-olds in the United States hit the lowest level in decades, according to a recent national long-term trend assessment released on Wednesday. The National Assessment of Educational Progress reported the declining education levels occurred during the pandemic. However, the downward trajectory began at least a decade before government officials and school districts shuttered classroom doors and switched to online learning in response to COVID. So that's why it's really important when you hear about all these disastrous outcomes in the public school system and test scores are declining, and it's just every week there's another report just like this. And very often they try to blame it all on the pandemic, which to begin with, that's wrong because the pandemic didn't do any of this. Okay, there's nothing that happened in the pandemic that would prevent kids from learning to read. Okay, the COVID didn't do that. It was the government's response to COVID that did that. But even that is not the explanation because all of these trends, the decline in performance among kids in grade school, that's a trend that dates back years and years and years. It accelerated during the pandemic. I mean, when you shut down all the schools, and crucially, you shut down the schools and then tried to replace the schools with online, with Zoom. Now, if you shut down the schools and then everybody goes into a homeschool environment, well, then the kids end up, educationally, they end up better because the education you get in homeschool is far superior to what they get in public school. But that's not what happened for a lot of these kids. It's not like they seamlessly went from public schools are shut down and now they're being homeschooled. No, they went from that to all of that is being replaced by the screen, by Zoom meetings, basically. And that had the effect of accelerating all these trends, but these were trends that were in place long before that. And if we were a culture that, if we were a serious culture in any way, this would be a huge scandal, that we would be talking about and focusing on. And the scandal being the total failure of the education system to do the one thing it's supposed to do, which is to educate the next generation of Americans. It is completely failing in that regard. It takes a special kind of company to want to partner with my show. I say a lot of things that make a lot of people angry, as you probably noticed, and this tends to scare off advertisers. That's why I'm so grateful to partners like Pure Talk, who stand behind me and my show, no matter the consequences they might face. Pure Talk shares my values, which is why we've made them the official cell phone wireless partner of the Daily Wire. That's not the only reason. Pure Talk offers the most dependable 5G network in the U.S. I use it myself. Their plans are top tier, but at a fraction of the cost of AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile. You get unlimited talk, text, and unlimited data with a mobile hotspot for just $55 a month. You vote how you spend your money, so stop supporting woke wireless companies that don't support you. Instead, go to puretalk.com/Walsh. You get great coverage and save while you're doing it. When you go to puretalk.com/Walsh, you'll save an additional 50% off your first month because they actually value you. That's puretalk.com/Walsh. Pure Talk, wireless for Americans, by Americans. The one-year anniversary of Roe versus Wade being overturned is coming up, and since then, the left has absolutely lost their minds. Pro-life efforts, which are more important now than ever, are booming. You heard that right. Despite the narrative, pro-lifers actually are not going away. They have increased in number. 40 Days for Life is changing hearts and minds in the most blue pro-abortion states in the country. They've had a record number of locations since Roe was overturned. They grew in both volunteers and locations. With about 1 million volunteers in 1,500 cities, they hold peaceful vigils outside abortion facilities. This success has come with new unwanted attention, as you'd imagine, from the federal government and the DOJ in regards to free speech. As one of the largest pro-life organizations in the world, no one is in a better position than 40 Days for Life to end abortion in each state in a post-Roe America. You can help them fight the ongoing legal battles of protecting free speech for their volunteers, including Mark, the 40 Days for Life volunteer who had his house raided by the FBI. Help them defend free speech by giving a tax-deductible gift of any amount at 40daysforlife.com. That's 40daysforlife.com. Every time we see one of these dumb guy on the street interviews and someone's out on a college campus or they're just out on a street corner somewhere and they're talking to random young adults who are walking by and asking them who was the first president of the United States, or, can you name 4 states in our country? How many continents are on the globe? And they're being stumped by that. And we all kind of laugh about it. And it makes sense to laugh because it's absurd, but at the same time, that again is it's a tragedy. Actually, it's a testament to the fact that our education system has completely failed. And yet we basically, and this is something that every once in a while people look over at it and they say, "Oh, well, that's a problem. That's unfortunate," but then nothing is ever done about it. It's just like the sex abuse epidemic in public schools that's been going on for years. The Department of Education, like 20 years ago, did a report showing that sex abuse in public school by public school staff members is an epidemic. It's like thousands of cases of it. And it's even 20 years ago, the Department of Education admitted that. And we see the stories that come up. We're all familiar with these kinds of stories. Public school teachers being arrested for child porn or abusing their students. And yeah, people pretend to care about it. And anytime we hear a new story or a new scandal, we glance over at it, and then we just get back to whatever we were doing. And I think the reason is that our society doesn't want to face the total collapse of the education system. And what a disaster it has been for children, a disaster in pretty much every way imaginable. We don't want to face that because of the implications, because of what it means. And what it means individually for a lot of parents is that if you in any way can, you should be pulling your kids out of that system. Well, but if you do that, then that's like major sacrifices you have to make in your life. You have to completely restructure your life. Because modern society is basically structured around public school system, around this idea that you put your kids on the bus at 7:30 in the morning, they're gone, and they've got daycare. The public school system is a glorified daycare system, and then they come back at 4 o'clock, and you've got all that time in between to do what you want, to go to work, and our whole society is kind of structured around that. If you take public school out, it becomes, you have to drastically change the way that you do things, make some major sacrifices. People don't want to do that. So instead we look away and we let the public school off the hook, which we have to stop doing. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out the Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.